There's Maureen. Now I was waiting for Linda or Dave.
All right, guys, so we are just in a little bit of a hold until we have quorum. And once we do, we'll begin the meeting.
Talk amongst yourselves.
I'm glad to be
Hey,
back.
Linda.
Ashley, are you still planning to do the executive session?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Terry, do you get overtime?
No, I just let Friday be a very short day.
Linda is on her way. She had a little technical difficulty and she'll be here in like 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you for that update, Jeff. So I appreciate everybody just being patient with us while we again wait for quorum.
Of all weeks to have a couple people on vacation. This is, makes it tricky.
Was Seth and Ian not going to be here?
Right now, Ian is reportedly somewhere close to Kansas or in Kansas driving. And I don't know where Seth went away to, but Seth is away.
Okay, so you're kind of not expecting them.
No. Ian told me if it's an absolute emergency that I can try to get him, and if he has reception, he can try to hop in. But for 5 minutes or 6 minutes, I don't think it's a huge problem.
Then I will take those few minutes to feed the cat.
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
do you have you sent out the link for the executive session?
Yeah, I sent it out like 5 minutes ago.
Okay, because I'm going to send you my personal email if you would resend it to that. So I have, because my town computer is now all shut off and
Okay. Yeah.
the
Just
pain,
email.
you know how much of a pain it is now to re-sign on.
Yeah. Yeah. Just let me know.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and send it to you.
Jeff, the other thing, have we gotten draft orders yet?
They are combining in the PDF right now. Sorry, it's kind of a crazy day. So
I hear you.
you will have them before, I'll race the clock here and tempt fate. You will have them before Linda gets on. Maybe. All right, Terry, should be on your way.
Yep, I got it. Thanks. It's even stupider. Even fucking stupider. Sorry.
All right, as promised, draft orders made it before Linda.
Thank you, Jeff.
Been a long time since we've had one of these where we got like the little wait.
Yes, I think we've only had an issue maybe once since I've been on the commission.
No. I can only think of one time. We had once when we didn't make warrant. I remember years and years ago. But sometimes it's how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's the one I remember.
Yeah, but Linda is planning to finally manage to get in, right?
Yes,
You are-
she was.
you
When
are
you guys saw me
expecting a
answer my phone
quorum.
call, it was Linda in a panic that she was having some difficulties and had to get a replacement device going. So she said she'd be a few.
Okay.
We didn't get any last minute, cancellations or withdrawals or anything, did we? Not since your last,
We did get two more. I told Ashley just to run through them again. We had the only new ones came in, Linda
Here she
Lori.
is. Here
All
she
right.
is. So we're
I'll let Ashley announce it as part of the regular announcements.
right. All right. Hi, Linda.
Yeah.
I'm here.
You're on. Awesome.
I'm gonna have to have that laptop chained to my body.
All right, everybody. So we are ready to begin the Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, March 24th. This meeting is being held entirely remotely, so all participants are participating via Zoom. I ask that everybody keep their devices muted unless you're speaking, to cut down on extraneous noise. I also want to remind everybody not to screen share their computers, as anything you screen share might also be captured by the recording. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand either in your computer window or virtually, and I will recognize you as soon as possible to speak. Other than that, I will run through our continuances and then we will open it up. So the following items are continued this evening. Under notices of intent, we have the Linda Loring Nature Foundation at 90, 110, 124, 130, and 136 Eel Point Road, continued until April 7th. We have 13 Commercial Street LLC at 13 Commercial Wharf, continued until April 7th. We have Meyer at 307 Pulpus Road, continued until June 9th. And then we have Park City Wind LLC, New England Wind Connector, continued until April 7th. Under amended orders of conditions, we have Phillips trustee at 19 East Tristram's Avenue, continued until April 7th. Those are all of our continuances this evening, so we will open it up under public meeting, public comment on items not being heard on tonight's agenda. Does not appear that we have public comment on YouTube at this point. It also does not look like we have public comment on Zoom. So I will open the meeting under notices of intent. We have Town of Nantucket at Sacajah Pond, represented by Thais Fournier.
Hello, everyone. How are you? I just wanted to bring to attention from, I believe it was probably about a month ago now, for approval of our pond mats to be placed in Sacajah Pond. Just to reiterate, it's 0.02% of the total area of the pond that we're looking to put these mats out. They are underwater, and this is to help mitigate the nuisance widgeon grass that is now kind of growing to excess, that is now reaching the surface and also serving as an area for harmful algal blooms to congregate and be trapped in that area where a lot of people are swimming.
Thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners? It's been a little while on this one. It does not look like there's any questions from, oh, Mark?
Just to refresh my memory, there's no chemicals involved in this, just the mats, right?
No, this is just a benthic barrier to place over the grass on the bottom of the pond. So this is an alternative, more natural alternative.
Thank you.
You, Mark. So if there aren't any more commissioners' questions, we'll open it up for public comment. Does not appear that we have public comment on YouTube, at least on this at this point. So Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
We do. Just as a quick reminder, we actually continued this from before because we were waiting for the natural heritage determination, and that came back as a no adverse impact and no take. So
Thank you, Jeff.
excuse me. But other than that, we are good to go.
Okay, awesome. Thais, would you like to close?
Yes.
Is there a motion to close? Motion made by Linda, seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chairman, just a question for you. When we're down to 4, I know we were down to 4 before because I was sitting in my car at Kohl's in New Jersey. Do we need all 4 votes like the ZBA, or is it 3-to-1 type of thing?
I believe we can do a 3-to-1.
Okay, because it's different with every board I'm on, so, cool.
Yeah. All right, so that moves us on to Island Orange Group at 129 Orange Street, represented by Mark Ritz.
Good afternoon, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 129 Orange. We had this before the commission, I think 2 meetings ago now, and There was quite a bit of discussion about our proposed changes, and we went back and made some modifications to the plan, and I'd like to go over those this evening. The main two modifications that we made was that the existing concrete pad behind the building, we're proposing to remove that, replace it with crushed stone and a fence enclosure, decreasing impervious area inside the 25-foot buffer. We've also relocated our proposed loading dock towards the rear of the building and have shortened it somewhat, so it will no longer extend into the 25-foot buffer zone. It stops right at the edge of the 25. The overall net result here is that we are now actually decreasing impervious area on the property by approximately 15 or so square feet. It's not a massive decrease, but it is a decrease over what's there currently. And this still allows us to have our covered loading dock, which will make it easier to get trucks into the property to deliver without turning around. Additionally, because we've shortened the length of the loading dock as it extends from the building, we have a little more room to increase the width and height of that berm along the western side of the property. We're now able to get that to approximately 18 to 24 inches wide and high, which gives us a little bit of a better barrier for containing runoff on the property and not having it go directly into the wetland. Those are basic changes. We're still proposing to have the loading dock covered, and we still have infiltration chambers to contain that runoff and infiltrate it just outside the 25-foot buffer zone that is shown there south and below and above the loading dock on the plan. We have four chambers proposed. That's basically the extent of our modifications since the last meeting.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Linda?
I mullened back in. I went and signed the form. I looked at the minutes, looked at the video, and read the file. So I'm mullened back in. So we now have 4 back on it. I think this is a win-win, frankly. The fact that that wetland still exists when everything around it, I remember when it was bigger, everything around it was filled by other people around the other sides. And then we had the commons came in, and that just sort of, it's there. And I think this is a win-win. I think the modifications they've made since the last meeting on the 24th of February have been really beneficial. So I think it's a good idea to try to fix the situation, because right now it's sort of chaos and the stuff isn't contained well enough to keep it out of the wetlands. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Linda. Are there any other questions or comments from commissioners? Mark?
Well, I was there today looking at that site again. And I just think that that site is developed maximum development right now. When you walk in the site, I walked all around it, all the way around back. It's just surrounded by water and wetland. I think you shouldn't be working in there within that zone. And the loading dock now is sufficient for loading. I've been using it for years. They want to expand it, I know, with more storage space. And I contend that site is just not conducive to more development. And I'm not in favor of this.
Thank you, Mark. Linda?
I'm not looking at it as further development. I'm looking at it from my point of view as more of a rectifying a situation that could benefit from being rectified, and not really expanding the use. I think it's actually protecting the wetlands more than it has in the past with the previous owners. And so I'm sort of not looking at it as an expansion. I'm looking at it as a correction that can do nothing but benefit the wetland that's remaining.
Thank you, Linda. And Mark Ritz, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just our intent here is to rectify existing conditions on the site. And we've modified our original proposal in such a way as we're not actually increasing developed or used area on the site. We're trying to swap out, a concrete pad that's already there for a loading dock that will make loading easier on the site, will keep vehicles from accidentally running into the wetland and from causing inadvertent damage or any additional adverse impacts. So this is really an attempt to improve conditions on site, make the use of the site easier, simpler, and safer, and not expand development in any way. That's why we've gone for the area swap and the slight reduction in impervious surface.
Thank you, Mark. I know I had a question, the last time we heard this, I know at least myself and Seth, and I believe some other commissioners were wondering if you would explore, mitigating in that wetland. I realize you've decreased some of the structural area, but I'm wondering if you explored that option at all.
Well, we don't have control of any of the wetland around us. Basically, it's all owned by other entities. So we don't really have the ability to do any mitigation on our property other than sort of, reduction of impervious area, enhancing the berm, vegetating the berm with native vegetation to try to improve the buffer situation. And honestly, since we're not asking for an increase in structural area in the buffer zone, we're actually reducing structural footprint inside the 25 by removing that concrete pad and constructing the loading dock outside of the 25. So we're actually less impact in the 25-foot buffer zone than is currently there right now. So we didn't really have any easy mitigation on site, and we have not pursued at any length, mitigation at significant offsite properties. So at this time.
Okay, thank you. Because I know, like when I see the concrete pad switching to crushed stone, and I realize that should infiltrate water better, I worry what's going to infiltrate there, given the conditions of that site and all the pavement, that it might not be more beneficial in the long run. Is that going to be infiltrated, into your drainage system?
We can infiltrate it into the drainage system. I mean, that area, that storage area, is really just a fenced enclosure for recyclables to be stored on site until they're carted off. And we're talking glass and plastic bottles, so we're not storing anything. It's basically empties being stored there until they can be sort of staged and hauled off site. But we could, if the commission would like us to, we could infiltrate that runoff from that pad into the infiltration system, make our chambers a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I think that would be wise, just given kind of the overall use of that site and, whatever contaminants might be on the ground, to get them infiltrated.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Linda, I saw your hand up, and then Maureen, I'll go to you.
I think Maureen had her hand up before me.
Okay, so Maureen, I'll go to you.
Thank you. This was, as I recall, we discussed when this was here last time, the fact that we need to see if we can put in our regulations somehow having mitigation done off-site in order to counter, what's existing and what has existed for a long time here. I think unfortunately, I think they have done what they can do, and I hope raising that berm will be helpful. It's one of these things that has been there for a long time. And I don't, short of really changing the usage of the lot and the rest of it, I think this is as good as we can get, is what I would think. I don't like it. I wish that we're not so crowded, but a lot of this has happened a long time ago. And And that's a big reason why I think we should look at trying to get mitigation done, in a separate area, which is done, at the federal level, certainly, and I believe other states do it as well. So I regretfully would go along with this.
Thank you, Maureen. Linda?
I've seen the trucks do 20-point K-turns. This is going to stop them from spending that much time turning, trying to get in and out of there. I assume this is going to make access a lot easier. And again, I think it's going to actually help that wetlands. I've seen stuff in that wetlands, didn't come from here, but it's an unusual little spot, lower than the commons, lower than Bear Street. I think that's what goes up next to it. It's sort of a, I've seen people just throw stuff in there. So I think anything we can do to improve the situation is probably a good idea. But I was going to bring up that the fact that the planning board, when they're doing subdivisions and whatnot, they actually, for a lot of these larger subdivisions, they will get a contribution to a fund. And they call it over there, so I think the sidewalk and bike fund or something along those lines, offsite. That has nothing to do with their actual subdivision, but it's an improvement of some element of the public access offsite. So they are allowed to do that. I didn't know if that, being what Maureen said, I didn't know if the Concom was allowed to get that kind of, when she's talking about mitigation offsite, if we could have a fund where people would have to contribute to offset a damage to a wetland or some other thing, or public access at another site not related to the one that we're on. But the planning board does it all the time on big subdivisions. They get a substantial fund.
Thank you for bringing that up, Linda. Jeff?
So I did look into it, and I was going to bring it up during this one. So we do have the ability to do it. We would need to create the fund, and that's something that we reached out about. I think the tricky part with creating new funds, right, especially if it turns into like a revolving fund, is it's subject to the rules and regulations of revolving funds, which I won't bore anyone with now. So we may have to look into some sort of other alternative for it, because I know that's how a lot of them operate. And there are rules, just things that are simply like the total revolving funds within the town can't exceed a certain percentage of the tax levy. I think it's like 3%. So it's not very much. So unfortunately for the town of Nantucket, the airport fuel revolver takes up the big chunk of it. Again, I won't bore anyone with it. So we might have to try to find another funding mechanism to do it, but it does look like it's feasible with a little statutory change. So
Well, check the one that we have at the planning board, because we got around that revolving part of it. So check to see ask Leslie, because Andrew's away for 2 weeks, what exactly happens at the planning board when we get these contributions to a bike path somewhere else or a sidewalk somewhere else.
Yeah, there's this set up for a statute with a dedicated purpose, so it functions a little bit differently. That's why I'm saying it just requires it would require the actual bylaw change to deal with that.
Well, it's something to look into.
into.
Cool.
Yes, those bylaw updates. We'll get there one day.
Yeah. You've been talking about it since long before I came on.
Yep. And then other things seem to take the time. Any kind of further questions about Island Orange Group or comments? And if not, we'll open it up to the public. Does not look like we have any comments on YouTube at this point. It also does not look like we have comments on Zoom. So Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
Yes, you have all the required information.
Okay. Mark Ritz, would you like to close?
Yes.
Is there a motion to close? Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal,
No,
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries with Commissioner Beal opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that moves us on to Augustine at 13 Woodbury Lane, represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, representing the property owner and applicant, Pat J. and Amy S. Augustine. This is the second hearing for a notice of intent filing for 13 Woodbury Lane. This is a fully developed residential lot in which landscaping improvements are being proposed. At the rear of the property, there is an off-site wetland that occurs just adjacent to the westerly property line. It was actually flagged and extended as part of the project to the north, which was the home that had been destroyed by the gas explosion and was recently before you. The application itself is for the replacement and expansion of a dry laid stone patio with specific landscape improvements within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. For the most part, what we are doing back there, it's an existing lawn area. We are extending the dry laid stone patio. There were questions at the last meeting regarding the landscape plan. We have resubmitted a revised plan reflecting plantings more in line with your specific requirements. There was also a discussion with regard to a fire pit that occurred between the 25 and the 50-foot no build. That component, as far as a fixed location, has been removed. I think we originally I was speaking about a stone fire pit above grade. That component has been removed from the application. Any fire pit that does occur there would be almost a movable piece of furniture type of thing along that would occur in the back area by the patio. So the fixed location component, stone and mortar, has been removed from the application. So those were the two outstanding items: landscape plan and the discussion on whether the fire pit was a structure. And I think we've addressed both of those, and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Maureen?
Paul, through you, Madam Chair. Paul, I think it was a good idea to take the fire pit out of the conversation. We happen to use something that looks like a big wok, and it sits on a couple of bricks, and we put charcoal in it, and that gets moved around, so if there's very easy ways to handle that, and not often something that gets used all the time. So I think that was smart. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll open it up for public comment. Does not appear that we have any public comment on YouTube. It also does not look like we have any public comment on Zoom. So Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
Yes, you do.
Paul, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
Motion.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Paul. And that moves us on to 9B Crow's Nest LLC at 9B Crow's Nest Way, represented by Brian Madden.
I have to remember, I had to recuse from this because I did all the research for this property.
Okay, so then we won't have,
Enough.
so we won't have quorum for this one then.
I believe we would. 3 out of 5, I believe.
We only have 4 today.
Well, we have 5 voting members. And,
4 today.
We only have 4 today.
well, I'm saying on this quorum, on this matter, we would have 5 potential voting members. And so if this were to proceed forward, we would need 3 out of the 5.
No, we only have Mark, myself, and Maureen and if Linda's recused.
I'll let-
But I think you can go forward with a majority of the quorum, with a majority of the quorum. You have a quorum of 4, someone recuses, so then the 3 can vote.
All right, I'm looking. I would tend to agree with Sarah. She knows this rule pretty well. I'm looking really quickly at my little cheat sheet here.
Okay, because I was always under the impression we needed 4
You
voting.
need four to hold the meeting,
Right.
but then you still have a majority of the quorum holding the meeting present participating. That
I
I
think that's correct.
Okay. Can we get town council's opinion on all of these quorum issues? Because I really do not want the commission to get in trouble for this, since we already have an issue for the number of voting members happening right now. So
here, can you just, not to be really mean, can I just work to confirm that really quickly, Brian and Sarah, and skip you for right at the minute and then come right back to you?
And come back, sure.
Yeah, give me like 10 minutes to work on this while we get there.
Okay,
You're great.
that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
See what we can do. No promises.
all right, so we're gonna hold over 9B Crow's Nest for some more information. And we'll move on to SP Norwell LLC at 2 Mariner Way, represented by Catherine Barnacle.
Hi, good evening. I'm in front of you for 3 consecutive notice of intents tonight, all on Mariner Way. That's 2, 4, and 6 Mariner Way. And we were before you back in 2015 to get the Mariner Way subdivision approved. At that time, we had the order of conditions for the roadway and 5 lots. Since that time, 2 lots have been constructed and the files closed out, and there are 3 lots remaining, 2, 4, and 6. And so those are in front of you tonight. We actually still have a valid order of conditions according to the COVID allowances, because of the COVID delays. We're allowed to have some additional time put on that, but we can't complete the projects. They're not even begun yet. So there's no way we can complete a project, say by April, when these orders are actually going to be expired. And we've already requested extensions, so we can't request any additional. So we filed brand new notice of intents with the commission, and that's what's in front of you tonight. And so the first one is 2 Mariner Way. It's on the corner of Union Street and Mariner Way. Do we have a plan? Oh, sorry, Jeff. I know you.
He's multitasking.
Sorry, is it humanly possible for you to share that, Katie?
Absolutely.
That would be most excellent for these if you could do that.
Yep, I am prepared.
Thank you.
Okay, so can you see this Union Street and Mariner Way here?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. This is 2 Mariner Way. Formerly, it was called Lot 4, just to confuse things because numbers change, but the address is formerly 2 Mariner Way now. This is, and here's a little locus map, if I can direct you to this corner. There is an isolated vegetated wetland out here that is local bylaw jurisdiction only. The entire area is within coastal floodplain. This particular lot is not anywhere near that isolated vegetated wetland, so we don't have any buffer zone issues for that isolated vegetated wetland. The other 2 lots in front of you tonight that we'll be talking about after this do. So this lot here, 2 Mariner Way, is in the floodplain. And that's why we're in front of you tonight. It's just solely floodplain. And you can see that there is a dwelling proposed with also the second dwelling here, or garage, located right in this location. And these are going to be pretty similar to the other 2, which are just south. Just there's a building here and a building over here that have already been constructed. And there's going to be lawn, there's a brick drive, and also per the planning board during the Mariner Way planning board review, we were required to put in
storm tech chambers. Here's the chamber right here and a basin, which will collect the roof runoff from the buildings. So that the water gets put right into the ground, and the groundwater is at a deep depth, so that we could design this so that there'd be no impact to groundwater, or it's well above the 2-foot separation required. And so this was approved. It actually is still actively approved, and but this is a slightly different footprint. There's a deck that wasn't shown before, so this building has been enlarged. So we do request approval of this construction of the single family home. And I'm wondering if I have said everything. The zone AE, elevation 8, and you can see here the first floor elevation is proposed at 9.5. So that's 1.5 feet above. And all construction will be in accordance with local and state and federal building codes in the floodplain. So yeah, we would request an order of conditions approving this project.
Thank you, Katie. If you could stop screen sharing, then I can see everybody.
Yep.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Linda?
I know it's not our jurisdiction, but things could change. Have you been to the HDC with this yet? Given how high out of the ground it is compared to the other ones?
It is in front of the HDC, or it has been filed, because one of the things we did, we submitted a revised plan, which is in your package, to match what was submitted to the HDC. I don't know exactly where the submittal is right now, but definitely. That's my understanding.
My only concern through Madam Chair is to avoid you ping-ponging back and forth between the two. There may be substantial changes made to this through the HDC process. I just didn't know if it was more, I know you can file at the same time to just sort of get the clock going on both of them. I'm just wondering if it's advisable for you, having been on the HDC for 20 years, if it's advisable for you to go forward with this with us. And the HDC may radically change this, because they did the other two that were approved and built in there. So I want to avoid you coming back, reapplying and changing everything, because the HDC weighed in on these, any one of these. So
Yep.
I just, I'm leery about closing the hearing and approving anything tonight, if that's going to happen, because you never know when you're going to get hurt over there. It could be another month out.
I'm just emailing really quickly the other members of the team that are not on the call tonight that I see, to see if they can respond to me about what the status of the HDC is. I don't know if we'll have an answer right away, but
I'm looking for the agenda from last night. I've got it around here somewhere.
You know, I appreciate that, but they can always come back for an amended order.
Yeah.
You know, if the HDC has big changes, or a minor mod if they're, you know, minimal.
I just know what they put the other two through about 4 or 5 years ago when they built those.
yeah, I think we'd like to do the amendment route, you know, to work towards an approval if possible. And then if there are substantial changes, we can certainly come in with an amendment request and work with Jeff on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. So we'll open to Mariner Way up for public comment. It does not look like we have any public comment on YouTube. So Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
Yes.
Okay. Katie, would you like to close?
Yes, please. We request the hearing be closed.
All right. Is there a motion to close? Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? I'll
Can't see
second.
Marlene.
Yeah, I'll second this one. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that moves us on to SP Norwell LLC at 4 Mariner Way, also represented by Katie Bernicle.
Thank you. I will put up the plan if that's okay.
That would be great. Thank you.
Make sure I put up the right one. Okay. All right. I'd like to direct you again to the lower left of this plan. This is 2 Mariner Way that we just spoke about. This is 4 Mariner Way. And the isolated vegetated wetland is actually off the plan. It's actually off this entire site. It's on a property owned by the town. But you can see that we have a 25-foot buffer here, a 50-foot buffer, and a 100-foot buffer from the isolated vegetated wetland. So we have work that is outside of the 100-foot buffer, but the entire site is within floodplain, as all 3 of these are. The same thing, zone AE, elevation 8, and the first floor elevation is 9.5. We have a dwelling, and then we have the second building here for a garage, and decks connecting. There are some hardscaping, the brick drive here, and then lawn area. And there's no work within the 0 to 25-foot buffer zone. You can see we have a little chart here to show where the work is proposed. Within the 25 to 50-foot zone, we have a small amount, 195 square feet. And that's really where the tree line exists now. That since it exists, we're asking that just be maintained as lawn area. And then 50 to 100 feet, we have the square footage here. So the 50 to 100 feet is where all the structures are. So all the structures are set back greater than 50 feet from the isolated vegetated wetland. As with the other projects right here, we also have the storm tech chambers for the roof runoff. And pretty much everything else is the same. There's an active order of conditions right now, but that expires in April. And so we submitted this brand new notice of intent for you. And we are requesting approval of the single family home with the appurtenances shown on this plan.
Thank you, Katie. If you would take down your screen share, then I can see everything.
Yep.
Thank you. It's hard to navigate this Zoom world sometimes.
We're doing okay.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll open it up for public comment. It does not look like we have any public comment on YouTube at this point. Or on Zoom. So Jeff, I'm assuming we have everything for 4 and 6. Okay. So Katie, would you like to close?
Yes, please. I request a closure of this hearing.
Okay. Is there a motion to close? Motion made by Maureen, and Linda, I'll give you the second. So by roll vote, Beal.
Aye.
Arisman, I. Phillips.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. And that moves us on to SP Norwell LLC at 6 Mariner Way, represented by Katie Bernicle.
Great. Thank you again. And I will pull up the plan. Oh, share screen, 6 Mariner Way. Share. Okay. Hopefully you can see this. This is 6 Mariner Way. And if we go down to the locus map again, this is the third and final lot that we're requesting tonight. This lot also has the detention area that was constructed as part of Mariner Way. That's why it has such a funky shape. But that's already constructed. That's already been built for more than a couple of years now. And what you see here is this isolated vegetated wetland that just encroaches a little bit on this property, 6 Mariner Way, or formerly Lot 2. And we have the 25-foot buffer, 50-foot buffer, and 100-foot buffer. So the entire site is located with zone AE, elevation 8. And again, the first floor elevation is is 95. This is all one continuous structure here with deck and some paving and a brick drive here with some other hardscaping here, and the remainder is lawn. And you can see that the existing tree line comes up pretty closely. There's a little bit like 9 square feet that goes into the 0 to 25 foot buffer zone that you see up in our nifty chart here. And we are asking that just be maintained, that we won't be encroaching any further or cutting any of this vegetation down, but it just be maintained as is. And then within the 25 to 50 foot buffer zone, we have this brick drive, and we are allowed to alter up to 50% of the buffer zone within the 25 to 50 foot setback. And so right now what you see proposed is about 40%. And here's the square footages. You know, the total amount on the lot within the 25 to 50 is 3,700 square feet. And we're just proposing 40%. And then, as you can see, the majority of the work is entirely within the 50 to 100 foot buffer zone, with all structures or the building setback 50 feet from the isolated vegetated wetland. So same story as the other two. There's an existing approved condition, order of conditions that's going to expire. And we filed this new one with the revised footprint. And we request approval of this order of conditions. Please.
Thank you, Katie.
Oh, stop share.
You're pro.
Getting there.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. So we'll open 6 Mariner Way up for public comment. So do not see public comment on YouTube. I also do not see public comment on Zoom. So Jeff gave us the go-ahead that we have everything, and Katie wants to close. So is there a
Yes,
motion
please.
to close? Motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Come on, Mark.
He's just hanging out in his easy chair. Probably where it's warm.
Oh, so seconded by Maureen.
I can never get in to make a motion anymore.
Well, Maureen seconded that one. So maybe next time you'll get the motion, Mark. So
That'd be
we'll,
quick, Mark. Quick.
yeah, we'll roll vote this one. Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Katie.
Great. Thank you very much. Good night.
And I am recused from the next one. This is my project. So this is gonna have to wait, I guess, for Jeff to come up with something and his hands up. Yay.
Okay, so Jeff.
All right, I have an answer that I was able to independently confirm through our open meeting law expert through the town, and then verified through some actual written guidance that we had around. If someone recuses, if you've made initial quorum and someone recuses, a decision can be made, but it takes the number required to pass from the initial quorum. So if you have 4 members present for something to carry, it takes 3 votes. It's not a majority of the 3. So in your guys' case, if someone recuses, it would take a unanimous vote for like a hearing to close or for something to issue. But you're allowed under Robert's rules to do that with recusals.
Okay.
I'll work on getting that all in a very clear writing thing for everyone and a little cheat sheet or guide, but I was happy to be able to pull that together.
Okay.
And hopefully you don't deal with it very often.
It's lucky. So Brian.
Thanks, Jeff. Do you mind if we just huddle up and figure out what we're gonna do?
For both projects?
Yes.
Yes, that is fine, and we can move on to our next item.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are going to move on to JFM Cacique, I hope I'm pronouncing that, LLC at 36 Easton Street, represented by Jeff Blackwell. Oh,
There
here
we
we
go.
Here I am. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a property that has recently changed hands. And instead of seeing what usually happens, which is a demo of the house, it's a fairly old house. The owner is renovating the house in place, and he wants to add some second-story deck that is within the existing footprint of the structure and first-story porch. So there will be no additional footprint to the structure. It's all above the existing structure. And then there's also a HVAC platform proposed along the west side of the structure. And that will be supported on the building. So there'll be no displacement of floodwaters. And it is complies with wetland setbacks. So that's about the long and the short of it. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jeff. So are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Maureen?
Yes, Jeff, through the chair, it was just hard for me to see whether is the brick patio, is that something that's already there? I mean, the only thing that's different in the footprint just that little AC thing, which isn't exactly on the ground anyway? Is that right? Or is that brick patio, is that new?
That is the only expansion of what would be seen from a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
The brick patio is already there. And
Excuse me, it's already there? Is that what you said? Right,
yes.
okay, good. That's what I really wanted to know. Okay.
And I don't know if you can see the plan clearly, the PDF that was submitted. Anything that is proposed is in red text and line work, but I don't know if you have that available.
Yeah, what I have is black and white, so that just makes it harder to see.
Oh, I see.
Okay, well, that was my main question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You. So Jeff, I know I had a question. It looked like on the plan there are planting beds that are right up like above the bulkhead.
Yes, those are all existing. Yeah.
I was wondering if those are native species, kind of flood tolerant species.
I confess that I don't know. I haven't really taken a look at what's in the planting bed. This property is one that has been in, well, until its very recent sale. It was in the same family for, I'm gonna guess somewhere around 50 years. It was generations of this family lived there. And, but I did not take note of the plants that are existing on the property.
Okay. I was just curious if they'd be willing to, have native species in those planting beds. I realized that the structural expansion is, overdeveloped area, but it's still, structural expansion. And I thought that would be a nice trade-off to make sure that those are, again, kind of flood tolerant native species.
I'd be happy to bring that to the owner. I'm sure that anyone that's spending money, I expect that it's possible they're thinking about changing some plantings, although it wasn't discussed with me. But I'll definitely share the Conservation Commission approved list, and any irrational person would want to be planting a salt tolerant species at that location. It's going to get it through the air and an occasional storm overwash as well.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll open it up to the public. Does not look like we have any public comment on YouTube or on Zoom. So I don't know, Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Jeff
Motion.
Blackwell. Okay, so Linda's making the motion. Is there a second motion to close? Seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that moves us on to C-Turn Realty Trust at 10 Blue Heron Way, represented by David Haynes.
Good evening. David Haynes this is at 10 Blue Heron Way, and this is for a septic repair replacement, no expansion. Taking the existing system, removing the septic, or pumping it and filling it with sand, whichever is more appropriate during the time of construction. Then we're discharging from there to a Septitech IA system, and then that goes around and goes into a new leach field. Again, no expansion. Work is proposed that the property is almost completely surrounded by resource areas. It is above the floodplain in the center. It's got existing houses and lawn. All of the work will be done within existing lawn. No work will go into any other vegetated areas. And all structures, there will be no structures according to your definition, but all work is outside of any resource area. I think the closest point is part of the forced main line is within the resource areas on the site are salt marsh, coastal bank, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and bordering vegetated wetland. All work will occur, much of the work will occur within the buffer zone, but the leach field will be outside of the buffer zone. Sediment erosion controls will be put up prior to the commencement of work, and after everything will be restored to grade and exist in vegetative condition. Be monitored until it's stable before the silt fence is pulled. Basically, that's it. It's the repair. It's replacement of an existing system at the same capacity, incorporating an IA system. Leach field is outside of the buffer zone. No waivers are being requested. And thank you. And any questions, please?
Thank you, David. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll open it up for public comment. I do not see any public comment on YouTube. I do not see anybody coming up on Zoom either. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
Yes, you do.
All right, David, would you like to close?
Yeah, I like an easy one.
All right. Is there a motion to close? Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, David. And that moves us on to 64 Baxter Road Realty Trust at 63 Baxter Road, also represented by David Haynes.
Again, good evening. This is the moving a house back from the top of the bank. It is an existing house within 50 feet of the existing coastal bank, and we are picking it up, moving it back as far as possible on the property to increase back from the bank. But judging by some erosion rates just up the street, this will be relocated outside of 20 times your annual erosion rate out there. So which is, I think, as I remember, 49 feet, and we will be back beyond the 50-foot, definitely beyond the 50-foot setback, as close to the front of the property as possible. The disturbed area under the house, existing house, will be restored to lawn or landscaping, and we are requesting a waiver because of the front porch and a portion of the house are within 50 currently, so we're working on a structure within 50 feet of the coastal bank, and so we therefore need a waiver. But there is no other alternative. The area will be restored, and it will have no adverse impact on the resource area. All disturbed areas will be loan seeded and monitored until they're stable. And that is basically it, and another fairly straightforward one.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Maureen?
Yes, David, through the chair, is the foundation and whatever below ground structure, if any, going to be the same as the existing house, the type, if you will?
It will be the same.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? I'm just happy to see them, doing a straight move back. I always appreciate that sort of foresight from property owners. So we'll open this one up for public comment. It does not appear we have public comment about this one. Jeff?
Burton Bocan did ask just for confirmation on what number Baxter Road this is. So it is 63 Baxter Road.
All right, so if that is our only public comment, Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes.
All right, David, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
All right, is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, David. All right, and that moves us on to Kerwin at 28 Tennessee Avenue, represented by Ryan Maxwell.
Thank you. Ryan Maxwell with Brocken Engineering. This notice of intent is for a septic repair that's within 100 feet of a BVW and a salt marsh, and it also falls within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The new system is a microfast tank with a pump chamber that pumps up to a geoflow drip dispersal field. It's an improvement over the existing conditions. All of this work is taking place in the front yard of the property, and the salt marsh and the BVWs are in the rear of the property and across this gravel I street. The dispersal field itself is outside of the 100-foot buffer to the BVW and the salt marsh. The tank replacement falls inside of the 100-foot buffer, which is why we're before you tonight. Pretty straightforward. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ryan. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll open it up for public comment. Not look like we have any public comment on this one. So Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close?
Yes.
Ryan, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Maureen, by roll vote. Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to Nantucket Conservation Foundation Incorporated at Gibbs Pond. And it looks like we have Jonathan Schuster on, Karen Beatty, and Naomi Valentine. And I'm not sure.
Yes, good evening. Yeah, we have Karen Beatty here as well as Naomi Valentine.
Yes.
Shall I get into it?
Sure.
All right. So we're proposing a water quality management plan for Gibbs Pond, and this is to treat toxic algal blooms and the underlying hypereutrophic state of the pond. And so we filed this as an ecological restoration limited project. So with our filing, we included Appendix A to Form 3, and we've also submitted a MESA checklist to NHESP. So the overall goal here is to reduce the risk to human health as well as wildlife. Pedestrians do come in this area. This is a 37-acre pond, as you may know, so it's rather large. The resource area we're dealing with here is land underwater. We are also within the 100-year floodplain, but I'll note that bordering land subject to flooding jurisdictionally extends from the bank of the pond outward, and this treatment would just be within the limits of the bank of the pond itself, so just land under water body. I'll mention that the Nantucket Land Council has done a testing here for 3 years, so there is a lot of data that has been collected, and our team, led by Naomi Valentine, who's the ecological restoration team lead, collected additional data, including bathymetric survey in 2021. Another important thing to note about this pond is historically it has been used for irrigation of the milestone cranberry bogs, but beginning in 2021, that irrigation pumping completely ceased. So all irrigation of the bogs is now being conducted with well water. And I'll also note that the cultivation area of the bogs has been reduced from 300 acres to about 25. So flooded water is not being returned to the pond now. And this is part of a larger management plan to address the issues in the pond, of which our filing is a component. So the actual treatment, which I'll get into. We did consider some alternatives. I submitted a supplemental letter that kind of explained a little bit about why dredging isn't really a good option here. Mainly that's financial would be the reasons. And also we're now proposing some supplemental sediment testing. The NOI also, the narrative goes into some of the water quality testing that would be ongoing before, during, and after each treatment. So the treatment itself would focus on phosphorus deactivation. And so we'd be using alum, the contractor would be using alum, it would be a licensed applicator, and the alum would be either polyaluminum chloride or aluminum sulfate. So we've kind of embedded a little bit of flexibility for the discretion of the licensed applicator at the time. And basically, you know, water quality testing would be done before, during, and after, and then the product would be applied. And then the algicide would be applied about 2 to 4 weeks later, depending on the needs. And in terms of applying the product, we're proposing, so basically a truck would bring it and would be stationed on the bank, and it would be pumped to a boat that would then, you know, motor around the pond with a little hose and treat the water column. I'll note that the gas-powered motor provides an additional benefit of helping to mix the product through the water column. And all of this, again, I'd like to stress, there'll be water quality testing before to kind of hone in on the exact treatment regime and after. And we do envision this taking multiple applications, most likely over multiple seasons. And we're also proposing to, just have all stakeholders remain in close communication. Basically, the contractor would communicate in real time, what approach they're going to take, what the dosing is. There'd sort of be a conversation and ongoing testing, which would inform each subsequent application. And that's basically the gist of it, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and Naomi is here as well for any technical questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Maureen?
Yes, through the chair, Jonathan. When I read this, the notes I was making about these, this is a different. I'm not familiar with this kind of application nor the methodology, and obviously you're hiring people who they are licensed to do this, and so they have all the training and everything necessary. And so what I was wondering was what kind of, how do you, oversee something that you all may not be, absolute experts in? I mean, I'm sure there's a way for you to do it, but this just is complex enough. I would like to hear a little bit more about how you do that. And then how often, I'm sure it's in there somewhere, but I couldn't find it when I looked through quickly. How often will you be doing the monitoring and testing, especially after you've done the application? For how long would that continue? So I know there's a lot of questions there, but it's basically how this operation is going to work with something that is, obviously could harm things if it were done improperly. So thank you.
Yes, thanks for those questions. So I'll try to sort of unpack them, and maybe I'll kick one or two over to Naomi as well. So first and foremost, I can say that the contractor that's being considered is Solitude. They're very well known. They're licensed applicators. They are, they really are they're really good at this kind of thing, so that they know what they're doing. We have a lot of background data for the pond already. And when you combine that with ongoing monitoring, that's sort of the reassurance that's there, and sort of the, the communication that I was talking about before. And in terms of frequency of testing, right off the bat, there's going to be the water column testing. And when you combine that with the sediment data, that provides an entire picture of what's going on in terms of phosphorus in the pond, which contributes to the toxic algal blooms. So yes, we take it, very seriously that, there's going to be this product applied. We're trying to address, this issue of harmful algal blooms, but we don't want to do any harm. So that's for sure. Naomi, did you maybe want to speak to the frequency of the water quality testing?
Sure thing. So the water quality testing is going to continue at the same frequency that it has in the past, to my knowledge, and Karen can confirm that. And that will be standard water quality suite, not just the phosphorus, although phosphorus is the biggest concern because of the harmful algal blooms. In terms of the application itself, I completely agree with everything Jonathan said. Additionally, even though SWCA is not equipped to conduct an alum dosing to this scale, we're very familiar with the baseline science behind it, the calculations, the monitoring, and we'll assist the Conservation Foundation in that oversight. So we do feel very confident in that. The reason that we're not, I recommended that they hire Solitude, is that this pond is quite deep and quite large, and we're just not really well equipped to manage a pond of that size. And Solitude does do a very good job of it. And one of the reasons is the application method. You mentioned this one that you're not familiar with, and I don't believe the commission's seen a method like this in the past. And the real difference is that they'll be, instead of applying to the surface, have sort of a trailing hose that goes deeper into the water column. And for a pond of this depth that likely is stratified to a certain degree, it is a better method to try to inactivate the phosphorus, especially when our assumption is based off of the data that we've collected that that is the source. Lower down in the water column is where the phosphorus is reactivating from each season. So it's just the better method for this pond in these particular instances or conditions. And I do also want to add that because of the location, being that it's on an island and all the product needs to be shipped over each time, and it would require quite a lot of product, you've got these sort of built-in limitations that won't physically allow for an over application of the alum. We have restrictions on how much product can be brought over at once. So it's always going to be a rather low dose each time. So there'll be these checkpoints where we're seeing, okay, that concentration seemed to sequester this percentage of the phosphorus within the water body. And it just needs to be stepwise because of the pure volume of water in the pond.
I just have another comment, if I may, Madam Chair. The Solitude people, we are familiar with. I live right on Long Pond, and they've done work on Long Pond and Hummock Pond in the past. So they're a very good group, and also I appreciate you're going through all the steps you're taking to do this. It'll be very interesting to see how this goes, because it's obviously a significant problem that is not going to go away. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Maureen. And Karen, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, Karen Beatty. I'm the Director of Science and Stewardship with the Conservation Foundation. I just wanted to, I know this is outlined in the Notice of Intent submission, but I did want to acknowledge that the Nantucket Land Council is our partner on this project. And they're the group that have been responsible for the vast majority of the water quality testing that's taken place to date. And they're the ones who will be continuing to monitor the pond during this process. So we're working very closely with them.
Thank you. I know I had a couple of questions kind of about the ecological restoration aspect and the chemical treatments. I'm, I guess, feeling increasingly concerned that chemical treatments for these algae blooms are seeming like our go-to. And when I see like an ecological restoration heading, I feel like I want to see, a bigger step, say like, actually removing the phosphorus sediment. So I guess I am looking for maybe more information besides like just cost prohibitive about why we wouldn't maybe experiment with dredging in the future on a pond like this. Given how isolated it is, it doesn't seem like it would be getting new introductions of phosphorus. And again, when I see restoration, I think, really restoring versus management, which is kind of a chemical treatment sort of program, which is what you're proposing. So I guess I'd just like to get some more information on that, because I worry that you guys are now using chemical treatments or proposing them on 3 different ponds. That's going to continue island wide. So again, kind of what are we doing to actually manage the phosphorus sediment in there, and what's kind of the long-term plan for this pond?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I think, did someone else raise their hand? So basically the fact that we're taking itty bitty bites at this, it's a massive pond, and each application would be fairly, I don't want to say minuscule, but very modest in terms of what it would take to treat all the phosphorus in the pond. The amount of testing that's going on, that is a huge built-in safeguard right off the bat. Secondly, alternatives were considered. The dredging, obviously, cost would be frankly prohibitive, but especially for a pond this size and the amount of sediment that's there, it's also opening up, it would be a very involved process, not to mention the logistics, island location. if needed, we could provide, some additional information there, maybe some numbers about, why we're saying it's not feasible. But I think it would be a massive undertaking. And in terms of, the chemical applications here and restoration versus just management, I mean, we want to return the pond or manage the pond in a way that's safe for wildlife and for humans. So yes, it is managing this sort of artificial, extremely high phosphorus load, the eutrophic state, but it's getting it to a place where it's functionally providing better wildlife habitat. And that's really the goal of it, is, to get those toxic algal blooms down, so it's not, killing everything in there and not posing a health risk to people. So that's where I think it does align very well with the idea of restoration. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see, again, what you're saying there. I just worry that we're treating the symptom and not the problem, for, again, the long term. And I completely understand the harmful algae blooms. I walk around Gibbs Pond. I have a dog, it's dangerous. So I completely understand the need for treatment, in the short term. But again, I worry that this will be a long, years and years worth of treatment required, when that just is concerning to me. So I'd like kind of a better analysis of the length of time of treatment versus, what a dredging might do. And Mark, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I'm unsure as to if the chemical treatment eliminates the phosphorus or just controls it.
It would be binding it. And basically my understanding is that whether it's polyaluminum chloride or aluminum sulfate, it would be binding the phosphorus, taking it out of the water column.
Would that be gone forever then, you mean?
It would be bound in the pond. So it's not, basically it's taking it out of, it's making it not bioavailable and active in the pond. So it's not taking it, it's the short answer is it's not taking the phosphorus completely out of the system, as if you were dredging up all the sediments from the bottom of the pond and shipping that off island or something.
I guess I'm not wild about chemically treating ponds when there is an alternative. And dredging would be the easy answer, but the expensive answer. I mean, getting rid of that sediment in the bottom, we're talking about dredging one of our great ponds. I think it's Myacomet, is that right? I forgot where, yeah, I think Myacomet. We're talking about dredging Myacomet because there's, I don't know how many feet of sediment there, and it's for a similar reason or the exact same reason. But so I'm just not happy with treating things with chemicals when you could have an alternative. And maybe your suggestion that we should look at numbers, and I hate to base it on numbers because this is probably going to be a forever type pond, we hope, and a pond we can go back to swimming in as I did as a teenager. So that's just my thought. I think I'd like to see more on the issue of dredging if I could.
Thank you, Mark. Karen, I see your hand up.
Yeah, in regards to that, I totally hear what everybody's saying, and this is, we certainly are not taking this lightly, the idea of treating ponds with chemicals. We do, every pond on the island is different, so you have to look at the different unique situation. And a smaller pond, as I believe Myacomet would be, I don't know off the top of my head what the acreage is, that's a different story from Gibbs. Gibbs is a really big pond, and when we can certainly provide documentation in regards to cost, but we are talking millions and millions of dollars just to dredge. Then there's the question of what you do with the material when you take it out. It probably would need to be shipped off island, which is, of course, an additional cost. Another issue is the Massachusetts Historical Commission. It's a very significant site for Native Americans, so we would most definitely need to do an archaeological survey, which is an additional cost. So for at least for a private nonprofit organization such as the foundation, that is completely out of our wheelhouse. A project like this would probably be multiple times our annual budget. this is a first step that we're trying to undertake to get the harmful algae bloom situation under control. Our big concern is that someone's going to go swimming and get sick. Somebody's dog is going to go swimming and die. I don't mean to be alarmist, but this pond is different from the other pond that we brought this forth last year at Kapam, in that there are multiple places where the public can and do access the pond. So for now, we're proposing this as a public safety situation. But it's not like we're coming to you and asking you for a one and done. This is what we're going to do for the next 10 years. We will be reevaluating this every year. And if there is new technology that becomes available that would allow us to do some kind of a project where we were actually removing the phosphorus, we would certainly consider it. But it would be a very, very complicated, extremely expensive project for us to undertake. And so we're trying to improve the situation for the next couple of years and work in partnership with the commission and the land council and all the different stakeholders.
Thank you,
I have a
Karen.
follow-up, Ashley, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Mark.
Karen, do you know the source of the phosphorus?
It's likely, frankly, the cranberry bog has been in operation there since the mid 1800s. So it's probably that. It's probably atmospheric. It's probably a number of things. I mean, we don't know for sure, but it's a situation we're seeing in all of the ponds.
Have we done core samples of the bottom?
We've done sediment testing, and I believe Naomi can address that, as SWCA was the group that did it last year.
That was the thing I was going to add. You read my mind, Mark. So I was just going to touch to a couple of things that Madam Chair spoke to. It is a fairly isolated pond. So if it were of a smaller size, maybe with a different historical context, dredging might seem like the best option, because we did do a survey of the surrounding area to try to identify some likely continuous sources to see if there was anything from the buffer zone around the pond that we could potentially improve to reduce any continued introduction of nutrients into the pond. And to a couple of your points, it is very well buffered, and we couldn't find any indication of nutrient input from other locations. And so that's the conclusion that we came to, and that we reported to the Conservation Foundation, that it was most likely, we can't say definitely, that the source of the nutrients and the sediment themselves was from water being pumped in and out of the pond over the years, and just the historic use from the cranberry bog. We were able to collect some preliminary sediment samples, shallow sediment cores from the base of the pond. Unfortunately, the equipment that we came out with, we lost a section of our equipment because there's quite a good breeze that pushes through there, and the sections we were trying to get really good samples from were very deep. So that's something that Solitude is going to do, is they're going to conduct another round of sediment sampling in the deepest portion of the pond this year when they go back out. But we did get a good preliminary picture of the sediments from our original survey last year. And we looked into other options as well that might be able to long-term help with organic reduction within the pond. And as to Karen's point, I personally am always looking for more holistic approaches to lake and pond management, because it's such a huge issue across the Commonwealth. And I know that they've been very focused on trying to find other sources of nutrient management. So we'll certainly continue that search. And I do have a couple threads on some other options that might become possible in the future, but I'm not sure what the regulatory pathway is right now, so I need to get into that a little further.
Maureen?
I just have a question about the binding process. Is that to a non-scientist, is that essentially kind of neutralizing, if you will, the phosphorus? When you were talking about, Jonathan, you were talking about that this binds with the phosphorus to, it sounded to me like to make it no longer active, no longer harmful. and that whatever new compound is created, that can sit there and not be harmful going forward. Am I correct in thinking that way?
I think what you just outlined is, generally speaking, basically taking, the active phosphorus, binding it and creating something that's, not bioavailable, more chemically inert. That's generally speaking, a simplified kind of description of what would happen.
And may I have a follow-up? And so you would not, this new compound or whatever you want to call it, that would not need to be removed. That could be there, or would you need to remove that, or do you know?
No, that would remain there. And again, we're talking about a very piecemeal approach, with just the limiting factor that this is a deep 37-acre pond, and with all the checks that we have in place with, years of testing. I mean, this, the permit we're applying for is a 3-year permit. We're going to be doing these applications, checking in between. Do we need algicide this year? Do we need, and what's in every single one, every single treatment is customized. So looking forward here, there's a lot of checks in place to communicate with your commission, to communicate with the other stakeholders, the land council that's going to continue their testing. That's sort of why we feel strongly that this is the best approach, that we want to get our foot in the door, just reduce the harmful algae as best we can with this initial treatment, and all the while doing additional testing. And yeah, in the future, if there's a better option, a better chemical option or physical removal option, we want to consider any and all options. And this is a multi-year likely process, which in some ways is a good thing to address your concerns, that we want to initially just get our foot in the door with treating this really bad issue, the toxic algae in the pond.
So I kind of have a follow-up for Maureen, just to make sure I'm clear. Because phosphorus, obviously available in the water column, is going to stimulate an algae bloom. When you're saying binding, you mean binding to the soil particles, right? Like dropping out or precipitating out of the water column. And then is it possible, say there's a big storm or someone shuffles up the bottom, would that kind of reintroduce that phosphorus and allow it to be available again? Or is it, completely unavailable, period?
I can answer that if you'd like, Jonathan.
Sure, go for it.
So it's binding to the alum components themselves, and then that's precipitating, sort of similar to a flocculant, to the base of the pond. And then once sort of at the sediment layer, that compound is further, it sort of creates a layer on the top surface of the sediment. That's why a lot of people go for a method that doses the lower portions of the water column, or even dosing the sediment itself, because it will prevent the further stirring of sediment to stir non-alum bound phosphorus, if that makes sense, that's been sitting in the sediment. So anything that's been bound to the alum itself isn't going to be recirculated throughout the water column through agitation of the sediments, but any phosphorus that's in the sediment that wasn't able to be bound by the alum could be resuspended. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And I just want to say, I'm so appreciative of your stewardship and trying to manage Nantucket's ponds in the complicated situation. So I hope you don't take, these questions about ecological restoration and dredging, the wrong way. I just think it would be good to have kind of more information moving forward for everybody to kind of have access to. There any kind of final thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, I'd have to throw my hat in the ring on this, but for the person who's been working on the Mayacamet Pond dredging project, and just to kind of put the real cost to it, I know Karen said what it was. Right now, we have a pretty firm estimate, even from the folks that will be doing it, that to get through permitting and actual dredging of Mayacamet Pond, which is a little bit smaller, depending on when you measure, it's anywhere from like 35 to 40 acres. we're estimating that if we were able to do that in the next year, altogether would probably cost us between $4.5 and $5 million to do. So that's kind of the real cost of it. Dredging is just, it's just expensive. And I actually think Gibbs would probably be more expensive due to some accessibility issues and just a deeper pond. It's just big. So that would probably scale that cost at least a little bit. So you're probably, to get into Gibbs, probably well over the $5 million mark to get it done. So it's, if someone wants to come up with a cheaper way to dredge, that would be, we would be all for it because it's expensive. But that's, I mean, honestly, we've had that discussion for Hummock Pond for the better part of a decade, and that's the real reason why Hummock Pond hasn't been discussed seriously for dredging. Is it's, Hummock Pond is huge, and it's just prohibitively expensive right now. So someone invent a cheap dredge that does a good job, and we can be on our way.
We need Mr. LaFleur here to come up with some ideas. Mark?
Yes, thank you, Ashley. To the group, how will you rate success or failure at the end of 1 year or 3 years? What will be your standards for the pond health?
So I'll take a crack and then Naomi can correct me. So basically, we already have 3 years of data from the Land Council, very detailed data on, what algae species are there, what is the bound phosphorus, all these parameters. That set of data is going to be carried forward and reproduced, when we're talking about the treatment this year and subsequent years. So basically, we'll be seeing in real time, the outcome, and we'll be able to know rather rapidly, what effect is occurring. The reduction in toxic algae will be measurable. And that's sort of like a generalist sort of answer to your question, but Naomi probably has something a lot more specific that she can tell you.
I don't have anything extremely specific, but I will say in general, for a pond of this size, really any reduction in concentration of phosphorus in the water body would be successful in my mind after the first treatment of alum. But there's never a goal to get phosphorus concentration down to 0 in the pond. There's a certain threshold. There should be nutrients. It's not the nutrients themselves that are a problem in the pond necessarily, just the amount of unchecked growth that they allow in a number of species that are harmful. So I would say if we could get a 10% reduction in the concentration, that'd be amazing. I know that sounds kind of maybe measly, but it's a very, very large pond. And to reduce the total concentration to a partial treatment in the first year would be fantastic. And then by the 3rd year, I'm not quite sure I can put an exact number to it, but I think that we could certainly make sure that we're keeping up with relevant literature and every year-end report to the Conservation Commission, make sure that we're being very clear about what the goals are for the coming season based off of the methods that are going to be used.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
Yeah, and I agree with everything that Jonathan and Naomi said, but just to add to that, I think one of our goals is to see a reduction in the harmful algae blooms, because that's obviously the thing we're concerned about in terms of public health. I believe last year, Gibbs Pond started experiencing harmful algae blooms at the beginning of August and was continuously blooming right through to October. And it was frankly the worst pond on the island for harmful algae blooms. So if we can turn that around even just a little bit, that would be a big goal for us.
Thank you, Karen. Any other questions, comments from commissioners before we open it up to the public? Looks like no, so we'll open this one up for public comment. Does not look like we have any public comment on Zoom or on YouTube at this point. So what would you guys like to do? Is it possible to provide any more information on like just what dredging would entail any way for kind of our records and for information?
We certainly could try to cobble together some, numbers if that would be helpful, or just to give more of a concept of what would be involved. But this is something that was, to my knowledge, considered at length by NCF, and we can maybe just try to put a little more context to it if that would be helpful.
Mark?
Yes, when you do that, it would be interesting to me to have you be a comparative study too, the chemical treatment versus the dredging. If it costs $1 to use chemicals, does it cost $5 to use dredging, or $10? I like to know what the chemical treatment will cost also, if you wouldn't mind. I mean, it's none of our business really, but if we want to consider dredging, I think we should know that what the difference would be with chemical treatment versus a dredging treatment. But I can't require it, I don't think, but I'd like to have it.
Thank you, Mark.
It may be a little bit apples and oranges there in terms of, well, obviously we can sort of outline some rough costs, but just in terms of the effect. So it will maybe try, I just want to put that caveat out there from the get-go, that they're, totally different approaches and not sort of interchangeable with the same, but we, the overall goal of addressing the phosphorus, sure.
Karen and then
Just
Mark. Oh, or Mark, do you have a follow-up?
I just had a follow-up. I hope that my questions aren't suggestive of me being not supportive of the whole pond movement. I'm very supportive of it, Karen. I'm a believer in the Conservation Foundation, as you probably know. So I'm trying to be helpful and get it straight in my mind what we're up to. So no insult intended. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
No insult taken, Mark. Thank you. And I think all of you would not be doing your due diligence if you weren't asking these questions. And it's something we take very seriously. I just wanted to add to what Jonathan said in regards to dredging. It really is kind of like comparing apples to oranges in terms of the cost, because dredging would be sort of a one-time treatment, whereas the alum treatment would occur over multiple years. And at this stage in the game, we don't know how many years we would have to do the alum treatment. The other thing I wanted to just throw out there is that dredging in and of itself can be extremely environmentally destructive. So it's not like it's a benign, great option. When you think of all the things that are living in the pond, turtles, fish, all of that would be pretty heavily impacted by a dredging project. And then another thing is, the whole PFAS issue could really rear its ugly head in terms of a dredging project. So, there are two very, very different types of management project techniques.
Thank you,
And-
Karen.
And
Jonathan?
one other thing I'd add is, we're still awaiting response from Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, and what we put in front of them was this chemical treatment. I mean, and so introducing the dredging, that would be a different question to ask them in regards to rare species that may be within the priority habitat there, but that could introduce a whole host of other concerns, just to state that for the record.
Yeah, no, thank you. I don't think we're suggesting that you switch to dredging right now, but just for our thorough alternatives analysis to have that information. Yeah.
Understood.
Because I would imagine Natural Heritage would have, a lot more to say about dredging. Yeah. All right. So at this point, there's no public comment. I think commissioners have asked all their comments. We've left you with some questions and we're waiting on Heritage. So would you guys like to continue until our April 7th meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this will continue until April 7th.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now I guess I'll ask Brian Madden what you're thinking about your two projects. We have 9B Crow's Nest and then Brant Point Club.
Yes, for 9B Crow's Nest, we would request a continuance to the next meeting, please.
Okay, so 9B Crow's Nest will continue then until April 7th.
Thank you.
And then you'd like to open Brant Point Club?
Yeah, I think we'd like to introduce it, please.
Okay, so we have Brant Point Club LLC at 6 and 8 North Beach Street and 4 Dolphin Court, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC representing the applicant. The proposed project site is comprised of 3 parcels downtown. The 3 parcels are proposed to be merged into 1 lot eventually. The existing structures on the property currently are the Atlantic Mainstay, the Brant Point Inn, and a single-family dwelling off of Dolphin Court, and which is going to be converted to guest houses. And there's some renovations taking place at the 2 existing guest houses. There are a proposed addition on the back side of the Atlantic Mainstay and the existing single-family dwelling at 4 Dolphin Court. And just to clarify, which I should have said earlier, so the project site itself is within land subject to coastal storm flowage, within up to elevation 7 here. There are vegetated wetlands to the south that are in the land banks pocket park that have been previously confirmed. Those wetlands are greater than 100 feet to the south. There are also wetlands at the end of Dolphin Court to the west that the 100-foot buffer zone just minimally extends onto the westerly corner of the project site. However, there's no structural work being proposed within that 100-foot buffer zone. So the project is proposing to eliminate the existing access off of North Beach Street and utilize the curb cut off of Dolphin Court with a renovated brick parking area. There is a proposed new building located somewhat centrally. That proposed structure will be situated on a shallow crawl space foundation with flood vents. The first floor elevation will be at elevation 8. So that will be above the flood zone elevation in compliance with state and local building codes. There's a proposed deck extending northerly off of that. That deck will be also elevated. That elevation is 8. It will be supported by sonotubes. There's a proposed 120 square foot pool on the edge of the deck. That pool elevation, the top of it is going to be above the flood zone elevation. So it will prevent the potential scenario of pool waters mixing with flood waters during the 100-year storm. There's a number of site improvements across the site, from landscaping, walkways, decking, ramps, utilities that are shown. For proposed stormwater management, there's a subsurface infiltration system being proposed under the brick parking area. And there's also a smaller subsurface infiltration system that's proposed southwest of the addition to 4 Dolphin Court. So the project has been designed in compliance with the flood zone performance standards. And with that, I'll turn over to questions at this point.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Mark?
Thank you, Ashley. Brian, on the pool issues, the elevation of the top will be at 8, you said?
Yeah, the pool deck is at elevation 8, so it would be somewhat equivalent, maybe slightly recessed, but the outer perimeter of it will be above flood zone elevation 7.
I mean, will it be sticking up out of the ground, Brian? At that height, it looks sort of strange, won't it? Look like a a backyard pool. It's not in ground pool. The opposite of in ground.
Yeah, I don't believe that has gone before HTC yet, but I believe I've seen some renderings that it will be some like siding along the perimeter of almost like lattice type of work around the perimeter of it to screen the pool itself. But yeah, it's an above ground pool.
Answer your question, Mark?
It did. I mean, we didn't like the pool idea on Eastern Street, but that was a flush mounted pool. So this is a little different. I got to think about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can provide some renderings of what that would look like, but the intent is under the deck to allow for floodwaters to pass through underneath. So it's not going to be a completely enclosed area. There will be some porosity there. But yeah, we can provide a little bit more detail on that perimeter if you'd like.
Please.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? I know, Brian, when I was looking over this, it is some pretty substantial development here. And I was curious about the infiltration system you have and like how far down that is, because I was worried given all the impervious surfaces it's trying to infiltrate, if that would impact groundwater, on Dolphin Court or some of the areas on site, because the infiltration's kind of on the side of the lot, not central. And I guess I'm worried about the impacts that might have.
Yeah, I think Ryan Maxwell from Bracken Engineering is on. I don't know if he could answer some of that, maybe relative to groundwater elevations. There has been some testing out there to get that information.
Yep. So yeah, we did some test pits to figure out where groundwater was. Both of the systems are going to be 2 feet above groundwater. Basically, the stormwater system is just designed to mitigate any increases in offsite runoff. So we're not capturing everything on site, but we're capturing, or we're not allowing more offsite than currently flows offsite today. So the new proposed structure that's in the middle of the property, that's all being piped over to the subsurface system. The brick parking area dumps into a catch basin type structure and then into the subsurface system. And we're also tying in various, existing downspouts into either one of the 2 systems to help with some of the site runoff.
And also just to add on to that, there is an oil grit separator as part of that larger subsurface infiltration system.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for just going through that with me, because I'm picturing like a flooding event. There's usually some sort of rainstorm happening at the same time. And what is that what are the impacts there? So thank you. Mark, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Actually, this is for Jeff. Maybe he can help me on this one. Jeff, very close by the corner of Easton and North Beach Street, there's an empty lot that was declared unbuildable due to the high groundwater and a vegetated wetland right next door. How is this property different for a new proposed building on the back of it?
Yeah, I'm on a Concom meeting. I got to call you back.
So I'll try to answer that. So the difference, Mark, and obviously the buffer zone that's right below that building is actually from that little wet area that's there. I think the difference from what we've seen in both of these spots is the area on for the 2 North Beach Street lot or whatever its numbers are going by on Easton Street now, 67 and 69. We were able to identify that site not only just because of its high groundwater related to the soils, but it also had the presence of wetland vegetation on that site. And its high groundwater was much higher than even this groundwater here. This site is about, I feel like the surface elevation on 2 North Beach Street is closer to like 2 to 2.5 in the low spots there, like close to 3. And this site is up at, 5 to 5.5 at kind of its high spot. So that extra 2 to 3 feet above where the groundwater was there gives it above that 18 inches that's required for that hydric soils determination for vegetated wetlands. So it is something that we've looked at there and gone at, and I know we've done some pretty extensive reviews, obviously, for 2 North Beach Street, and then for the house at 6 Dolphin Court. We looked at, but we did check here, and I think we tend to agree with the assessment on where groundwater is on that site, and it just doesn't meet the criteria for vegetated wetlands.
And also just to elaborate a little bit, the site itself is slightly elevated off of the surrounding roadways. There's 1 to 2 feet, I think, separation between Dolphin Court and North Beach Street from the interior of the site to those perimeter roadways.
Thank you, Brian. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll open it up for public comment. RJ?
Thank you, Chair Erisman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. It's unfortunate that there aren't more board members present this evening because from the Land Council's perspective, we share your concerns about groundwater and stormwater infiltration underground. And I'm curious on the board's thoughts based on relatively new resources here in the Coastal Resilience Plan, which I'm looking at right now. And this area where this is a high risk area with high coastal risk area, which defined in the Coastal Resilience Plan that came out this year, may be exposed to coastal hazards within the next 30 years of the lifetime of a typical mortgage. Due to the imminent and growing risk, large structural investments are not recommended in these areas under most circumstances, except where necessary to ensure public safety. So this is obviously new information for the commission that's been put together by Arcadis. But curious the commission's thoughts with this new information available about further development in a high-risk, low-lying area like this going forward with sea level rise. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ, for bringing that up. I think it definitely applies quite a bit to our regulations and rewriting those. I know in knowing the previous property owners here, like I know they've dealt with floodwaters before, as Pete has like kayaked out the front of that property previously. So, the flooding there and the added development is definitely a concern. But it seems like the prerogative of the property owners to, develop it and make that investment, which is, unfortunate in a lot of ways, as it does contradict our coastal resilience planning. I don't know if other commissioners have a thought on that one. Maureen?
Yes, I mean, I agree with the chair. All of these, so many of these places in Brant Point, I just wonder what people are thinking of and the risks they are taking. And then, of course, I don't think, one of these ones where there's hardly a square foot left, on the entire parcel that hasn't been disturbed or, covered in some fashion. I think it's something that we absolutely need to address with our regulations going forward. again, it's very frustrating to see something that you think is going to cause trouble in the future. And we have a consultant's report that would indicate that as well. But at the moment, this is a risk. I don't think we can make the kind of determination with the way our regs are currently done. I may be wrong about that, but I fear you're right, Ashley. So.
Thank you, Maureen. And Mark, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I was just going to reaffirm what you said. I don't believe we can turn it down because it doesn't meet the Arcata study recommendations. It has to be on something that regarding one of our bylaws, and I don't think I see it in our bylaws to say that they're in violation or not adhering to our bylaws or the state bylaw. I don't see it. Maybe I'm not seeing it all, but am I crazy with that one?
No, I think you're right. In our bylaw, I think development in this area is permissible. So that's where we are, unfortunately, in some ways.
My kayaks is all I'd recommend.
Yeah. There's not much parking, so they might end up needing to kayak there in the future. So it does not look like we have any other public comment on this. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
Yes. I did have one question, if you'll indulge me though.
Yes.
And I may have just missed it. Sorry, I just was looking at it now and kind of reviewing and listening to the conversation and thinking about the above ground pool. And maybe I was looking up something else at the time. The area taken up by the pool, is the storage for that, as far as flood area, included within the subsurface drainage area, like a compensatory storage?
I don't know if we did that sort of analysis. Ryan, I don't know if you could opine.
I don't believe so. Not the volume, no.
Yeah,
I think what you're getting at, Jeff, is relative to the performance standards, that the project cannot adversely affect the ability of the land to absorb contained floodwaters or displace or redirect floodwaters.
Yeah, we just haven't seen a lot of above ground pools, and we all know that people copy. And I just want to make sure that we get that properly discussed. Not to throw a monkey wrench in at the 11th hour here.
No, I also remembered Mark wanted more details on the pool period, and you guys alluded to that you'd provide those. So I had forgotten about that earlier question.
Yeah, we can certainly continue to give you a little bit more information on that. And, I don't know if we're able to provide like a compensatory storage like you would in an inland floodplain situation where you would actually excavate down and, compensate for whatever flood storage lost. I mean, with the flood zone standards in a coastal situation, those aren't typically the performance standards. But if there's anything else that the commission would like to see in terms of mitigation, we'd be happy to entertain it.
I know I keep going back to like the city planning work that I was like learning about in Philadelphia, where there was a lot more above ground water storage in like planters and things like that. So storage on the pool deck, like associating more than just infiltration, whether it be like rooftop gardens, which I know the HDC wouldn't go for at this point, but that sort of, thinking outside of the box in situations like this, I think would be beneficial.
Yeah, we can give that some thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any final questions before we continue? Looks like no. So would you like to continue until April 7th?
Please.
Okay, so this will continue until April 7th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that moves us on to amended orders of conditions. We have EPR RGH LLC at 119 Eel Point Road, represented by Paul Santos. Paul, are you with us for 119 Eel Point Road?
Excuse me, Ashley, did 19 East Tristram continue already? Okay, just make
Yeah,
sure.
they continued.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So I don't know if Paul is muted at this point, so maybe we'll move on to the RDA and then go back. So we'll move on to the request for determination of applicability. We have Breckenridge at 170 Cliff Road, represented by Ryan Maxwell.
Thank you. So this RDA is for the construction of a patio with some associated improvements. It falls within 100 feet of an on-site isolated vegetated wetland and an off-site pond that was approved through a previous order of conditions. So if you have the plan, the patio is just off the edge of an existing porch. There's going to be some minimal regrading involved with the construction of the patio. So with that regrading, we're going to extend an existing timber retaining wall a few more feet to capture some of the grade. And we're also going to relocate the existing well to a different location on the property because otherwise it'd be right underneath the new patio. That's pretty much it. That's all the work that's within 100 feet. There's other proposed work that you can see on the plan, but that's outside of the 100-foot buffer.
Thank you, Ryan. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Not, Jeff, what would staff recommend for this one?
We would recommend the -3, allowing the work without the notice of intent.
Would somebody like to make the motion to issue the -3? Mark gets the motion. Linda, I'll give you the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Hey, Ashley, Paul Santos.
Hi, Paul. So we're gonna do the amended order.
Thank you. I apologize.
That's okay. So we're gonna hear EPR RGH LLC at 119 Eel Point Road.
Thank you. My apologies. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors. This is a request for an amended order of conditions for a set of aluminum beach stairs and a lead-in wooden boardwalk or platform. I was before the commission at the last meeting, and at which time Commissioner Golding had asked for a profile to show the stairway itself. There also were some questions on the length of the stairs and so forth. So the plan that you see before you is a profile of the area in question. This would be a set of aluminum beach stairs in which the last section would be removed seasonally. That would be an approximately the last section you see at the interface to the beach would be an approximate 10-foot section of stairs. There'd be a small landing, a wooden landing constructed at that point to attach and reattach the stairs on a seasonal basis. The remainder of the stairway would be 2 sections of aluminum stairs that would seasonally stay in, and it would be connected with essentially three sections of hand-driven helical piles, which are typically a 3-inch diameter piping that is placed helically into the ground, and then a cross member is placed to attach the stairs to them. Then there would be a 3-foot wide landing at the top at the approach, again to attach the stairway to it. That's the extent of the application. There is not a need for, I mean, there was some talk about platforms and so forth, but this is essentially the layout that can be constructed. And again, it's an aluminum, which I think may be some of your preferred method now. And happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? And we do appreciate you providing that detail for us, so thank you. If there are no questions, I'll give a quick check to the public. Also looks like we have no questions. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to issue the amended order?
Yes, you do.
Okay, would somebody like to make that motion? Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? I'll second it. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye, Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere, Paul. You got 2 more.
I'm sitting right in the office like I always am.
All right, so that moves us on to certificates of compliance, as we don't have any minor mods. We have Hurley at 5 Sandy Drive. I don't
Sure.
know.
So Hurley at 5 Sandy Drive was for the removal of an existing structure.
Yeah.
All of that work is done. The site is still kind of bare earth from the removal of the structure. So I think we were going to recommend the issuing of a partial certificate of compliance for the house removal, and then leaving the permit open to allow them to reseed here in the kind of upcoming weeks to get that site revegetated, because they just removed it and you obviously can't grow grass in January. So it'll still give them the ability to do that work, but we'll close out at least a portion of that permit.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions for Jeff? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the partial cert? So Maureen made the motion, and I'll give you the second. Linda. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye, Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to 8 Bishops Rise LLC at 8 Bishops Rise.
This one was an application that was for the development of the lot. It was vacant previously. It was just for a single family dwelling in a well, and was in the buffer zone, and the landscaping thing goes with it. That site is done. Everything is stabilized, and we're recommending that can be issued as a full certificate of compliance.
If there aren't any questions for Jeff, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the cert? Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Maureen gets the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye, Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Hare, Fuller, and O'Connell at 37, 43A, and 43B Massachusetts Avenue.
I'll try my best, but Paul can supplement as needed, because this one's kind of tricky. It's an older one. For those, just to kind of set the scene, as you go up Mass Ave, like you're going to head on the Smiths Point, this is the group of 3 little cottages that are put together. And every time you go by them, it looks like they're absolutely just buried in sand, because they are. They did a project where they relocated some of the dwellings and did a bunch of septic work And we had been kind of holding out until we could get a certificate of compliance from the Board of Health on the septic work. We were able to gain that certificate of compliance. I say we as like I applied for it, but they were able to gain that certificate of compliance from the Board of Health here in February. And at this point, I think we feel comfortable that we could issue the certificate of compliance for that project, closing out a long expired permit with it actually being in compliance. Paul, if you want to add anything, you can feel free, but I think I got it pretty close.
No, that was, I think you captured it all, Jeff. So thank you.
There's a lot of certain through old paperwork on this one.
The Nantucket Archives.
Yeah.
Well, if there are not any questions on this application, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the cert? Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal.
Aye.
Aye. Phillips.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Moldenhauer and Honey at 71 Baxter Road.
Yes. So if you guys don't remember, this was one that came to us as an enforcement for some after the fact work for the installation of the irrigation system and some privet hedge. They've completed the work and recut in and clearly marked the path out in Sconset, the public way out to the, unfortunately, not quite to the edge of the bluff walk that's there these days. But it's all in, and I think from our view is back into compliance. So that we recommend that this could get issued. But it's something we'll definitely, I know it'll be a big surprise. We are regularly out on Baxter Road for months from some of our staff, and we'll keep an eye to make sure that it stays marked and it's put in there. I know they've been in front of Roads and White, the Road and Right of Way Committee too, who will also be marking it with their specific markings as well. So hopefully it will stay marked as a public access way.
Thank you, Jeff. If there aren't any questions on this one, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the cert? Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal.
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to orders of conditions. So Jeff sent these out just after 5.
We have quite a lot of them tonight.
There's a bunch. Some of them we won't have to do, but I had to get them all done because I figured if we didn't get to some of them tonight, our next meeting is a week from tonight, that we would get them then, and it just saves me doing them then.
I think our next meeting is April 7th, right?
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's 2 weeks still.
Oh yeah, it is 2 weeks.
Yeah, don't push it.
Sorry.
All right, so we're gonna begin our orders with Town of Nantucket at Sacajah Pond.
So this was the bed thick mat application. Sorry. Of course, every time we start to do this, I have to do a little transition on the computer, and it just takes a minute. I think I had just included just the regular reporting that goes with this because it's kind of it was permitted and described as a bit of a pilot project to try out to see what was going to happen. So to be able to get solid documentation coming back for what's going on and kind of evaluate it. I know that's something that I know the Conservation Foundation is really interested to see how this goes too for a couple of their sites. But just that was the only thing I really thought of because there's not any chemical treatments to where you're getting that back and reporting. It seems more of here's some photos. We counted some plants in and around the area. We counted what was in the benthic mat areas, and that was about it.
So Jeff, I just have one question about this one because I think the reason that I'm comfortable with it is because it's such a small percent of the overall pond. And I don't know if that should be like in the findings or if how other commissioners feel about that. But it's certainly not something I would permit for like a whole pond. So I just don't know how to put that in there.
If you like, actually, I can add to finding number 2. The commission finds that this project is being permitted as a pilot project, both in scope and with its area limited to less than, I'll double check the number off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure, tell you this again tonight, is 0.02% of the pond.
That would be great. And I think you're correct that she said 0.02%.
I know she and I have talked about it too. I'm 99, that's correct. I will quintuple check that. So number 2 then would say, the commission finds that this project is being permitted as a pilot project, both in scope and with its area limited to less than 0.02% of the pond, or as the school teacher and all of us would say, 0.02% of the pond.
Thank you, Jeff. And Mark, I saw your hand go up. No. Any other thoughts on this one? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
I'm going to give it to Mark because he beat you with his hand, got you at the drop. And I'll give you the second, Linda.
Okay.
So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Augustine at 13 Woodbury Lane. Oh,
I think 129 Orange Street.
yeah, I'm going in order of the draft orders. So
All right, I actually hadn't drafted one for 129 Orange Street because it involved waivers and there were a lot of questions about it. So,
okay.
Oh,
but I'm
so
happy if people have any thoughts or comments on that, we can certainly talk about it now.
I think we covered all of their stuff when they redid it.
yeah, I'd love to have some condition for them to actually be like checking what's going into the wetland on a regular basis from their site. Because they kind of describe it as stuff's leaving the site all the time and entering the wetland. So, like, I don't know if one of their employees can be doing a weekly walk around or.
They should anyway. They're monitoring it once a week would be a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we could ask for like a weekly photograph to be sent of the area back there, and simply enough. Or
yeah,
I can wordsmith something.
As long as somebody's watching it, it's not just being ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other kind of thoughts on that one? All right, we'll let Jeff work his magic and we'll see it back in 2 weeks. So
Woodbury. Yep. Woodbury.
yeah, we have Augustine at 13 Woodbury Lane.
So this was the Paul Santos project where they ended up taking the fire pit out and they changed the planting schedule. So I just included our standard regular work condition, our standard fill condition for what's there. And then they are doing some buffer zone restoration. So I just asked for those yearly photographs that we've typically been asking for.
Should we add the native species within the buffer zone just to have it memorialized in there?
Sure. We could put condition 21, all plantings within the 50-foot setback shall be native species with no cultivars. All right. So 21, all plantings within the 50-foot setback shall be native species with no cultivars.
Thank you, Jeff.
No problem.
If there aren't any other thoughts, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Mark
As amended.
Mark got you again with his hand. He's getting quicker at the draw. We'll give Mark the
Second.
motion and you the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. We did not do Crow's Nest. So that moves us on to SP Norwell LLC at 2 Mariner Way, formerly Lot 4.
All right. I'm gonna totally fess up that the next 3 orders all look exactly the same. Except for in the permit overview, 2 of them are within the 100-foot buffer zone to the little isolated vegetated wetland. But other than that, I just had our regular work and fill conditions for that project.
Thank you, Jeff. Maureen,
Can I make a motion to approve all 3 at once? Separately, but not having to go around the block?
I was going to ask the same question.
yeah, I don't see why not. So I think if someone's gonna second it, let's go
I'll
for it.
second it. I was going to say the same thing.
All right, so motion made to approve 2, 4, and 6 Mariner Way as drafted, made by Maureen, seconded by Linda. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously and speeds us along, so thank you. And that moves us on to JFM Cacique at 36 Easton Street.
This was the second floor deck and HVAC units on that existing structure.
I know I'd love it if we could put a condition that those plantings are native, given that they're increasing structure, even if it's over other structure. I don't know if Jeff, yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up from Maureen.
Well, they weren't asking to specifically do work in those areas.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of planting down there now.
So maybe we say any planting in those planting beds is to be native. I don't know. I worry that like that's a slippery slope right there.
There's a lot of hydrangea down there.
Right.
How
and
about an
worse.
additional finding 3? Let's see if I can, give me 1 second, Trey, because I have an idea. I just want to make sure it doesn't sound stupid.
It's hydrangea city down there.
Yeah, which is like literally the absolute worst in a flood zone.
And they look like hell all winter because they cut them all down to stalks. I love hydrangeas, but they just look horrendous all winter.
Yeah, they're not a great.
Great in the summer. 4 months of the year.
Yeah.
He's wordsmithing.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm
Right.
always impressed.
So additional finding number 3, because I'm not sure about being able to condition something that wasn't applied for in the project specifically and something that was existing.
Right.
So I've gone for a finding that says, given the proximity to Nantucket Harbor and the lot being located within land subject to coastal storm flowage, the commission recommends that any planted vegetation be native salt-tolerant species to maximize their resiliency and minimize the need for fertilizers and irrigation.
I think that sounds pretty great, Jeff.
Yeah.
That is my on-the-fly compromise for a condition, and I might have to save that because I actually like what that sounds like. So
I was going to say, save that one.
Yeah. You've got a lot of good buzzwords in there.
All I really need to get in there is a sustainability, and I've pretty much knocked all of them out.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Not
the
sure.
buzzword of today.
That may be rubbing it in though to get that in there too. So I think we'll chance it.
Thank
I'll make
you.
that motion to approve as amended.
All right, so motion made by Linda. Is there a second? I'll go ahead and second that one. So by roll vote, Beal. Arisman, aye. Phillips.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to C-Turn Realty Trust at 10 Blue Heron Way.
This was for the septic upgrade.
Yep.
So I just had our regular condition and then our kind of newly added fill condition, because there may be some material that's brought in for that one. But other than that, I didn't really have any grant conditions for that.
If there aren't any questions or amendments, would somebody like to make a motion to approve as drafted? Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal.
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to 64 Baxter Road Realty Trust at 63 Baxter Road.
This was for the house move. I had kind of our two standard conditions on there, and I left out some words in the title block, but
So should we, I know this isn't right on the edge like the Pocomo project, but should we like write a condition that heavy machinery has to be, back out of the 25, or I can't remember the conditions.
I don't think there's going to be any heavy machinery that should be getting even close to the 25. So I think they should be good. This is an interesting question, right? And I didn't include it because I'll just ask the question, is they're retreating the structure, and let me just double check the plan to make sure I remembered it correctly in my head, and increasing the setback from where it exists, and they are actually taking all of the structure outside of the 50-foot setback from where there was structure. I'm not sure that necessarily then requires a waiver because there's structure not going back within the 50. Because the waiver that you're looking for is that, projects that are water dependent require that all structures be located outside of the 50. And that's where they're going, is they're going outside. So I don't think they need a waiver. David asked for a waiver because he's nice, but I don't think they need one for this project since they're moving outside of 15 into a performance standard meeting position.
That's a good question.
Because my concern is if we grant them the waiver, and I'm not saying this is going to happen or they would do it, but I think as we look at retreat projects like this in the future, if we grant the waiver for allowing structures inside the 50 when they're not asking structures inside of 50, if someone comes back for an amendment or a modification, that waiver is already in place. As part of that discussion, I would rather have someone ask if there's going to be structure that's going to go back.
That's a good point, Jeff.
Like I said, there's nothing being proposed here, and I'm not saying that they're going to do that by no means, but stranger things have happened where someone gets down the path and decides they want to deal with it.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Linda?
Jeff, do they have to go to the zoning board?
No, I don't believe they're moving close enough to the road where they require ZBA approval at this point.
It's kind of stupid to come back and not come back all the way, but I was going to say, generally speaking, when they come back at the zoning board inside that front yard setback, which I think is 10 feet, they generally, one of the conditions put on there is usually no further structures in the area where it came from. Is that something that we've done here at the Concom?
Oh, I lied, Linda. They are going to require ZBA approval. I apologize.
Okay, that's
because that
usually
front
a
yard setback
condition.
is 30 feet there, and they're moving to 20 feet. So
Yeah, and that's usually a condition, but I didn't know if the Concom can put a condition on like that no further structures within that area. that they just moved out of, or can we put something where they have to revegetate it? Where they
Yeah, I
just
mean,
came from?
we could simply add a condition 20 that all disturbed. I come up with a really brilliant condition a minute ago. Now I can't even type all disturbed. All disturbed areas are to be revegetated.
And can we put that condition where no further structures in the area where it came from or within 50 feet of the bluff or any of those
We
things?
meet the performance standards to do that.
Okay.
So Jeff, do they not need a waiver then to actually work within the 50 to move the house out?
Yeah.
No, see, this is what's really interesting about the way it's written is because the structure itself, while it's there and they're moving it, to move it, I think would be considered an activity. An activity is permitted down to the 25. So I think because of the nature of what they're doing, I would advise against not giving them a waiver and just approving the work for them to do it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. So I think I would agree with that logic because it doesn't open the door for kind of construction.
I do sincerely appreciate that David asked for it precautionarily instead of me having to say, David, you need to ask for it. So much appreciated, but I don't think that in this case it's needed and smarter to not grant it.
Okay.
So this is good discussion. If there is no further discussion, would somebody like to make a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Made by Linda. Is there a second? I'll give it the second.
Yes. Go.
So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Phillips, Maureen, do you have a roll vote?
Sorry. Yes,
Okay.
yes, sorry. Press
that's
the wrong
okay.
button.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Kerwin at 28 Tennessee Ave.
This was another septic upgrade. I think I had the same kind of standard regular infill conditions for it. It seemed pretty straightforward.
If there's no kind of questions or amendments, would somebody like to make the motion to issue as drafted?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And then we have the Nantucket Land Council at Nantucket Harbor for their eelgrass.
Yes, so this is kind of a mirror of their last eelgrass permit, but it also includes the ability for seeding. Why can't I find it? There it is. In addition to transplanting. So it just kind of requires that yearly report because they provided a pretty extensive monitoring plan and things as part of it, as part of their study.
Mark?
I move approval.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Linda, excuse me. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Hellzapoppin Trust at 25 Willard Street.
This is another one that we closed at the last meeting too. This was the one this is David's project that was down there that involved the relocation and renovation of an existing structure that was kind of surrounded on two sides by wetland, a lot of which was in the lawn for those who don't remember. And they were proposing to put that. So I included, again, the same two conditions we've been talking about all night. A 20 that permanent markers be installed on the proposed edge of lawn, yearly photographs of the naturalized areas, And then also, as those renaturalize, especially knowing where they are, that any invasive species found within the site to be removed. Because my concern with any of those spots down there as they renaturalize, that we see our friends, Phragmites appear, and then we're dealing with brand new Phragmites patch, and we never seemingly get rid of it. So, and then there is a waiver on this one for that work. If people want to see the plan, I can put it up if that would be helpful for people too.
I don't need to see the plan. I kind of remember this one, but I don't know if anybody else would like to see it.
I remember.
Jeff, do we need a lighting condition here for the BBW?
Oh, sure. We could add a 23. All exterior lighting shall be directed down and away from the bordering vegetation wetland.
Madam Chairman, there's a lumen maximum for exterior lighting. Are you aware of what that is?
Like
It's the light thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure off the top of my head what it is.
It's in the lighting thing in the town code. Can't remember what it is either. The lighting thing is run out of the building department. But I didn't know if we ever put that maximum lumens in here or just said down lighting and away from the wetlands.
No, I mean, putting the maximum lumens would definitely be good because I think that's something that is generally forgotten about when people are installing lighting. So it's a second kind of catch for us.
Yeah, so it's in the lighting thing, Jeff. It's in the town code I don't think it's in the bylaw, the zoning bylaw, but I think pretty sure it's in the town code.
I will find it. I will find it before April 7th. It'll be easy find.
Cool.
I always call my friend Leslie. She knows. She's I believe, the lighting.
Yeah, and they got a new lighting thing in the office yesterday. So I've just occurred to me, oh yes, there is a lumen thing.
The lighting constable or whatever that position's called to that provision of the code.
Yeah, and find a town employee who's going to go out at night to test the lumens. It's usually it comes up when neighbors make a complaint usually.
I know Nantucket Lights is trying to get people to go out and record that stuff too.
Yeah, because it can be downlit all at once or pointed away from the wetlands all at once. But if it's 100 lumens or something, it's kind of pointless. The light scatter is huge.
Yeah. No, thank you for bringing that one up because light pollution is a big problem. All right. So if there aren't any other thoughts on this one, would somebody like to make a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
So motion made by Linda, seconded by Maureen. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that brings us to the end of our drafts. Yay.
A lot of drafts.
Tell me about it.
We're doing a lot of hard work today, just the four of us.
Yeah, just get them off the list.
Yeah, they'll tell Ian, Seth, and Dave that they owe you like pizza or something for knocking out that big list today.
All right, so this moves us on to extension of orders. We have Powers at 164 Hummock Pond Road. I know this is represented by Brian Madden.
What did we do with 141 Cliff?
Oh, sorry, that was inadvertently put on. We approved that a meeting ago. It just,
that's what I thought. I'm saying, why is that back? Okay.
No, ministerial error from us.
Oh my God, Jeff.
I know.
Brian Madden from LEC. Thank you. So requesting an extension onto the order of conditions for this project. So there were some wetland and buffer zone restoration activities that have been commenced, including the relocation of structures, a block wall, some removal of gravel, and some preliminary invasive species management. We are requesting a 3-year extension to complete those restoration activities.
So Brian, just a question. This permit had some structure building and things too, right?
Yes, some of the structures have been relocated. And we're waiting on an as-built to see how everything looks to make sure it matches up correctly.
Okay. Right.
There was an addition or two additions on dwelling out there that haven't been completed out there.
Okay.
Yeah. So we inspected the work on the dwelling itself is done. A good chunk of the removal of some of the unpermitted and some of the old stuff that was supposed to get cleaned up is done. The restoration work is underway. And I think the way that I read it was just keeping the permit in place to make sure that it's all satisfactorily done. We have time and a few growing seasons, excuse me, would be good. But I think when we inspected the site, it looked like everything was in compliance or in states of moving towards final product.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions from commissioners, or would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Maureen beat you with her hand. So I'll give Maureen the motion and Linda the second. By roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So we have approval of minutes. So first we have approval from our most recent meeting, March 10th. I don't know if anybody saw anything in the minutes that need amending, or if somebody would like to make a motion to approve as drafted. So
I'll make that motion. as
Maureen,
drafted.
Maureen got you again, so I'm going to give the motion to Maureen, and Linda, you the second.
Cool.
So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And then Jeff, I know we kind of already went through this earlier, but the SBPF minutes, only 3 of the 4 of us sat on. So can we approve those with just the 3 of us, or should we wait for the full board?
I think we'll wait. We're in no huge rush. So we'll wait till the 7th. I think that will be fine. We just noticed when we were going through the administrative record, spent time and noticed that we had not approved the workshop minutes. They just hadn't fallen into the cycle of approval. So we just wanted to make sure that we get those done as we move closer to a potential court date or not, just to make sure that they are moved from proposed to final. So the 7th is fine. And then I can correct the year on the posting, and then everyone will be happy. So.
Thank you, Jeff. So we'll continue the minutes approval for the 3/22/2021 and 6/30/2021. And that moves us on to monitoring reports. I don't think we had anything in there. So then we have enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions. Nothing
No,
there.
I got kind of swamped with a few other things and just haven't gotten to any.
Yeah.
I do have a question though, Madam Chair.
Yes, Linda, go ahead.
Through you, what is there been a resolution to that mess out there near the lighthouse on the right with her little viewing platform and stairs?
Are you meaning 119 Baxter?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, we had a talk with Mass DEP about that on Tuesday about what we wanted to do about that. And I'm waiting to hear back from the section for how they would like to proceed.
Because Paul figures that the big stick in this one is coming out of the Concom and not the building department. But he's there and, he's supporting whatever we end up doing.
Yeah. No, yeah, we ended up getting the state involved because they also got drug into it and just trying to coordinate with them. So
I'm sure politically he dragged everybody into it.
Oh yeah, we actually the DEP in our office has been contacted by the Army Corps of Engineers about
I'm sure we have.
that place there, and that's kind of what recast the gaze of the state on her lot and has gotten them very interested in what's going on there. So that's where.
Well, hopefully it's on our side and not politically in Washington, D.C.
Nope, they are ready to go. They just need to cross Ts and dot Is too.
Okay.
That's a great question, Linda. So that moves us on to reports. We don't have crack here. CPC,
No report.
nothing. NP and EDC,
No report either.
okay. So that moves us on to commissioners' comments. Linda?
My usual comment, I don't know how you run these meetings so well, because I'm telling you, out of all the meetings I go to, this is probably the best run meeting of everybody, because you run these meetings beautifully. And I have to commend Jeff on these agendas. These are monsters. What a great job you do with these agendas.
Well, I will throw a little bit to my new partner in crime. Lisa has done a good job stepping in and haven't had to make too many corrections or go over too many things. And hopefully sooner than later, I'll just be looking at it briefly and making sure that we're good and good to go. But, you know, we try to make it clear. But thank you.
So I do just want to make one kind of brief comment that kind of relates to the select board meeting last night, but I do want to say publicly that we as the Concom have, met with the town entities. We met as recently as, the middle of February, and it was kind of insinuated by multiple members of the select board that we haven't been willing to meet with them on these issues. And I just found that odd because, again, we very recently met with them. And if more members of the select board wanted to be present, I think that was kind of their choice. So, I did want to put that out there that I think we've done that. Any other commissioners' comments before we move on? Linda?
Yeah, about that. When the full board is here, maybe they can watch what happened last night, but it's kind of disturbing, some of the insinuation that how dare we send a letter? How dare we take that stand? How dare we bring up anything? And it was I'll use the quotes, the air quotes. I'm doing air quotes, that it was a misunderstanding. I thought the language in the MOU was very clear and very wrong. And again, I'll say it, it doesn't matter how I feel about SBPF or the geotube itself. It's wrong. And I don't know how our attorney and we can misunderstand the statements that were very clearly made in that MOU that are inappropriate from a board trying to subsume the jurisdiction of the Concom. Their comments were that they're just trying to make sure that there's compliance. And I said, okay, what does that have to do with them trying to make the standards of what is compliant and what isn't compliant? And Poochie took umbrage at the fact that we sent a letter from our attorney, who they allowed us to hire, that questioned parts of this MOU and that it was just simply not supportable legally. It just gave you an icky feeling about the whole thing. And then they just go ahead and whole hog sign it and approve it. Where does that leave us now? I think we're going to have an executive session with Ben as to where that leaves us now. Where are we going with this?
Yes, and I think hopefully we'll be able to discuss that tonight, even in executive session. But I agree, Linda. I found a lot of the statements concerning in the way the light that was cast on us was so negative, when we've really, been trying to follow our rules and regulations, be good players this whole time. And, they asked us for comments. They didn't specify whether they wanted individual comments from individual commissioners, and given the time frame that we had, a letter from our council was kind of the most efficient process. So, again, I think
they didn't give us any time. They didn't give us any time to actually come up with, we came up with it when 48 hours. We came up with those comments, but they didn't give us, you know, they were made the decision and they got it last week. I mean, you know, what took 2 years to get that? It just boggles my mind that this is where we are, but I don't know where we are now that they've gone ahead and signed it. We need to have a discussion about our position here.
Yes, yes, definitely. And I think, again, hopefully in the next few minutes, we'll kind of enter into an executive session and hopefully have some of this discussion. So if there isn't further commissioners' comment tonight, I'll give it over to Jeff for administrator staff reports.
I got nothing.
Nothing?
It's 8 o'clock. I got nothing. We'll finish up. So.
It is 8 o'clock. That is right. All right. So,
Madam Chairman, do we want to have an executive session without the other members?
Ian was potentially going to be phoning in. I don't know where he is. And Jeff, I don't know if you've also been texting with Ben. I know he was going to wait till this meeting was over, so I'm not sure how that's been coordinated.
He and I communicated. He's been kind of watching on YouTube in the background, so I'll check in with him as well.
I think it probably would be good, even just a quick catch up about what happened, even if we're not a full commission right now, just to know how we should move forward in conversation, you know, and all of these things.
Okay.
I know Ben did have a really brief update on some dates and timing related to the court case too. So
yeah. So at this point, then our next agenda item is an executive session. We have 2 items listed there. So the first purpose is to discuss strategy with respect to litigation with regard to Sconset Beach Preservation Fund Geotextile Tube Project Removal Order, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the commission. And the second purpose, to discuss strategy related to the proposed memorandum of understanding between the town and Sconset Beach Preservation Fund with respect to litigation with the Sconset Beach Preservation Fund Geotextile Tube Project Removal Order. Again, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the commission. So I don't know, Mark?
Yeah, was that link you sent the one at 4:45 for executive session?
yes, and Ben did confirm that he is eagerly waiting our appearance. He is there and ready to go.
Okay.
I will have to start that meeting though, so you'll have to give me 10 seconds.
Also move to go into executive session, not to return to public session.
Perfect.
I second.
All right. So seconded. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Phillips,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right. So I will see you all in executive session.
Ta-ta.
We adjourned this session, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.